The RSD, we've been created more like what I would call like swift boats, where we're able to change directions nimbly and quickly. And traditional school systems have been like luxury liners. If you want to turn that thing around, it takes forever and a day.
I'm Katherine Mangu-Ward with Reason TV, and we're here at the National Summit on Education Reform with Patrick Dobard, who is the superintendent of the Louisiana Recovery School District. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You were horribly unlucky and also very lucky to have a weather disaster, which kind of kicked off what happened in New Orleans and in Louisiana more generally. For people who don't know the story, tell me the story of how the Recovery School District exists.
The Recovery School District exists. In 2003, our legislature actually passed a law that said the state would be able to intervene in chronically underperforming schools. And then in 2005, a catastrophe occurred, a disaster just beyond our wildest imagination, and basically wiped the city of New Orleans out just for a period of time. And so in 2005, after the storm, we had a special legislative session where the legislature at that time felt that it was important to use this as an opportunity to really try to transform the education landscape in New Orleans. Before the storm, we saw a public school system that was really in total dysfunction and disarray, so much so that the valedictorian of one of the high schools wasn't able to pass a state minimum skills assessment test in order to earn her diploma. And so Katrina literally and figuratively washed away many of the institutional barriers that had prevented us from even imagining that we could begin to make some systemic changes to this school system.
So I think one element of what you do and what has helped kind of improve schools really anywhere in the country is the closing of bad schools, right? That's something that it's never popular, even when a school is bad,
yes.
Still parents are, it's my school. Sometimes people have kind of a feeling of ownership, and of course teachers unions tend to not like it. Can you tell me about some schools that you have closed and why?
Sure. One in particular was a school last year at this time that we made a decision to close. It was Benjamin Mays Prep School. It's a charter school that had been in existence for 5 years. They were coming up on their renewal for their contract, and they didn't meet any of the bars as far as like the criteria. So you have to have like different areas of academic achievement, financial solvency. And for us, it was a matter of saying, we went to parents and talked to them, and parents were upset about the school closing. But it was a classic example of what some have coined the happy bad school. So while parents might have been engaged and the kids engaged and they felt good, kids weren't reading on level. They weren't moving as their cohorts around the city were moving in other schools. And so it was us to be able to say, look, your kids deserve better. We can still make it a happy school, but it can be a good school. And with that, we closed the school. There was some, complaints and people upset. But those kids who then took us up on the offer and those families to get them into higher performing schools, over 85% of the parents that took advantage of it got into a higher performing school that very next year. And so it worked. So we have to try to balance and be sensitive to community concerns, but at the end of the day, we value having students in high quality environments, and we're going to do everything we can within the law to ensure that that happens.
Do you see other places where there's kind of a concern that as the charter systems kind of regularize and as people just get used to the status quo, that there might just be kind of a creeping re-centralization? I mean, that's sort of a natural tendency of bureaucracies. What do you do to prevent that?
Yeah, I think a couple of things will happen to prevent that. One, our charters will remind us of their autonomy and really, and say, hey, this might be an infringement. I think it would keep us like on our toes to not become the bureaucracies that some of us have come to abhor. But I think it's one of those things where the RSD, we've been created more like what I would call like swift boats, where we're able to change directions nimbly and quickly. And traditional school systems have been like luxury liners. If you want to turn that thing around, it takes forever and a day. And so for us, whether it's an infringement on autonomy, at least we're having conversations that leads us down a path to like be cognizant of it, to define it, and then figure out if it's best for the collective of schools versus just, turning into that luxury liner again. So I think we'll continue to be like swift boats and be able to make these nimble decisions, but we'll be able to do it as a whole, and we will police ourselves on that.
What is one thing that you personally do on a regular basis in your job that other superintendents don't do?
I meet with a lot of different stakeholders. I probably meet with critics as much as I do supporters, because I really want to get that information and that feedback to really help us leverage all of our resources in order to better serve kids. And so I think more than anything, the majority of my time is meeting with stakeholders, meeting with school leaders, meeting with community group organizers, meeting with students at times, to make certain that I stay grounded in the everyday operations of schools. So therefore, when our team is working together, we can make informed policies. And I think another thing that I do, I encourage my teams to stay in schools. Like, if we don't constantly go to schools and really be at ground zero to see what's happening every day, you know, we can't make good decisions as policymakers, because we're too far removed and we're only acting on what we think we know versus what we know we know.
Are there any schools left where the valedictorian can't pass state standards?
Not at this time, no.
Thanks very much for speaking with us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
For Reason TV, I'm Katherine Mangu-Ward with Patrick Dobard of the Louisiana Recovery School District.